Hello, I'm Thomas Ryan of the Lean Farmer. Welcome to another short video. So I love lean. I love applying it to farming. But if you're going to do anything with lean, the very first thing you got to do is you got to know the 8 wastes. And I watch a lot of people struggle with this. So I've got a tip for you on how to remember the 8 wastes. So check it out. So one of the ways that people try to remember the 8 wastes is with this acronym called TIMWOOD. Acronyms are horrible for trying to remember the 8 wastes. And most of the time what it tells me is they don't really understand the 8 wastes. So they have transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, and defects, and it doesn't even have the 8th waste, which is unutilized potential. Okay, so the other acronym sometimes people use is downtime. Same thing though, you're remembering an acronym, you're not really understanding the 8 wastes. You know, D for defects, overproduction, waiting, not utilizing people, transportation, inventory, motion, excess processing, and you still have to kind of like look up there and try to read it. It's just not the good way to learn the 8 wastes, and you won't really understand them if you do it that way. Okay, so the way you learn the 8 wastes is by telling it in a story. Everybody can remember a story. And I used to struggle with learning the 8 wastes. I was supposed to be this process improvement expert, and there was no way I could have told you the 8 wastes until Paul Akers, a friend of mine, said, "You're doing it all wrong, Thomas. You gotta tell it in a story." And so overproduction is the first one, and it's the mother of all waste. Then you have inventory, transportation, defects, overprocessing, motion, waiting, and wasted potential. And there's some slight variations on it, but generally it goes like this. And you can tell this story format with just about anything, and I'll give you a whole bunch of examples. So if you're in manufacturing, you make way more parts than the next downstream operation can handle, so you get a bunch of inventory that you have to transport all over the place. And all that transportation, you get a defect. As soon as you get a defect, you got a bunch of overprocessing and motion to fix it. All the while, people are waiting for that, and you're not utilizing their potential for what they really could be doing. We can go to a doctor's office. They overproduce on the number of people that those doctors can actually see. They get a whole bunch of inventory with everybody piled up in there. They move you around from office to office to try to make you feel like you're actually doing anything, but it's all waste. Then eventually you get a defect because they get something wrong with your paperwork or ask you a question. There's a whole lot of overprocessing with all those forms you gotta fill out, and think about all the wasted motion back and forth and stuff that they're doing just to try to get you to see the doctor. All the while, they have an entire room that's dedicated to the 7th waste, which is waiting, the waiting room. And then you're wasting your potential because you got lots of other things you could be doing. You could do this with farming. I had one time 3 sows that got pregnant at the same time. They all dropped a ton of piglets at one time. So I overproduced on the number of piglets that I could handle. I had a ton of inventory and they were literally running around everywhere. I eventually had a defect because the temperature dropped and it started raining, and I had a whole bunch of piglets that were getting ready to die. I had a ton of overprocessing with that, a lot of wasted motion, and all the other farm animals were waiting because I was too busy trying to fix that, and I wasn't utilizing my potential. You can go on and on and on. I'll give you another one. This one is nothing manufacturing related. You can even do it psychologically. I overproduce on the amount of negative thoughts that I have inside my brain. I don't deal with those, and I let them build up. I have an inventory of bad thoughts or anger inside of me. I literally carry those around everywhere until I blow up at somebody else and have a big defect, and then there's a whole lot of overprocessing because I've got to go apologize and get that fixed, and there's a lot of motion with that, and people are waiting to see the real you and experience the real you, and you're not giving it to them, and you're wasting your brain's potential because you're so hung up on those negative thoughts. You can go on and on with how this affects people and how the 8 wastes affects people, and in a story, people will remember it. But if you try to do it any other way, you're not gonna remember it and you're not gonna understand it. If you tell it in a story, you know as soon as you overproduce, I've got all the other wastes. Another thing about telling it in a story, you know as soon as you have a defect, all of the other wastes below that, overprocessing, motion, waiting, and unutilized potential comes right with it. So it makes it very easy to understand when you tell it in a story. We'll catch you next time.